Started. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Harrison Pyrus with APPA. It's my pleasure to welcome you to today's Public Power X webinar, From Reactive to Resilient, Modern Customer Communications for Public Power Utilities. If you're having any technical difficulties, you can contact us through the chat feature at the bottom of the screen. We've muted mics to reduce background noise, but please feel free to use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen to ask any questions, and we will carve out some time at the end to answer them. After the webinar, in the next couple of days, we'll email you a link to the webinar recording and the presentation slides, as well as instructions regarding continuing education units. Our partner for today's webinar is Convey, which has a purpose-built platforms and services for utilities where every customer interaction impacts trust, cost, revenue, and compliance. Convey delivers timely, accurate, and hyper-personalized communications during critical moments like outages, high bill events, and peak loads, as well as service transactions. I'm joined today by our presenters, Paul Watkins, Ben Murdoch, and Susan DeClercq. Paul is the Director of Strategic Commercialization and Innovation at Convey. He focuses on AI-driven customer engagement solutions for utilities and has a background in both utility operations and digital transformation. Ben is a senior analyst at Chartwell, specializing in customer communications and outage experience research. He manages Transact, Chartwell's post-outage customer satisfaction survey, and supports leadership councils on outage communications, emergency management, and organizational resilience. Susan is a senior project manager at Convey, where she leads the development of products that engage utilities of all sizes and to deliver timely, effective communications that enhance the customer experience. With an engineering background and more than 28 years of experience working with utilities, Susan worked closely with development teams to rapidly deliver state-of-the-art solutions that integrate seamlessly into utility environments. With all of that, I'll turn it over to Paul to start this presentation.
Thanks, Harrison. I appreciate the introductions. A common theme you'll hear throughout the webinar is how do you get from where you are today to some of the technologies that I'm about to show you. It all starts as a walk, run, fly journey. Much of what you see relies on a sound foundation of communication. That's the walk part. As those communications permeate all parts of your operations, you'll start running alongside your customers. Eventually, communications anticipate customer needs and engage them effortlessly in two-way experiences. But before I get started, Ben is going to share with you some information about Chartwell and its organization.
Thank you, Harrison, and thank you, Paul, for your introductions. And you can go to that next slide, please, Paul. Chartwell has been around for a little over 30 years, helping to be a trusted information provider, focusing solely on the utility industry. We started with published research, and then we still maintain that, but we've expanded through some webinars of our own conferences, where I met Paul for the first time a couple years ago at our EMAX conference. And Susan I just met through preparing for this webinar, so it's been great to meet her. But I spend most of my time working on leadership councils where we have dedicated groups focused on outage communications is the one that I work on, but also billing and payment, and I'll be showing you some billing and payment data later. Customer experience, a lot of that. So that is just sort of background on what Chartwell does and where I'm coming from. And my one and only promo slide is this next one. We have every year associated with the conferences that I mentioned, Best Practices Award, where we try to promote the great victories that utilities all across North America have experienced. We have split into two phases. The first phase is ending March 6th. So if you have outage related or resilience, emergency management related stories that you want to share with the industry, please submit those for this first round. But if you work in customer experience, billing and payment, electric vehicles, business customer, all of those other categories, there will be a second round. So please look us up and share your stories. Our grading criteria are focused on documenting the need, the solution, and the improvement in the way that you serve customers, not necessarily the flashiest, coolest product. So please keep that in mind. I would love to have more public utilities represented in those awards. So with that, my promo is done, and I'll pass it back to the Convey folks.
Thanks, Ben. Yeah, that's a real important thing for public utilities to be involved in a lot of things Chartwell's doing. So please reach out to Chartwell and get involved in that effort over there. Let's get started. Just think about all the businesses that you interact with on a daily basis. Even the smallest businesses in your community now send proactive text reminders, confirmations, and follow-ups. They've figured out proactive. They've figured out two-way digital communication. Today, customer standards are very high, and they compare you to all their other everyday experiences. Many of you probably have received messages from your dentist or your pharmacy, or maybe your salon or repair shop. Those are the types of communications that customers have come to expect, not only from those small businesses, but also from all the businesses that they interact with on a daily basis. That digital customer experience is so important that back in December, even Walmart publicly announced it reorganized its entire market identity around the digital customer experience. So much so that they even moved from the New York Stock Exchange to the NASDAQ. They talked about omnichannel retail in their announcement, but customers are already there. Customers recognize which businesses have moved from analog things like mailing and calling you to digital online two-way engagements and proactive communications. FedEx recognized it too. They recognized they needed to do more than they needed to do more and go from being good to being even better. The FedEx Delivery Manager application they have today, which is kind of a combination of a website as well as a mobile app, is really a great solution for all their customers. It provides proactive tracking, notifications, texts and emails, proof of delivery with pictures, and the ability to redirect packages, all without talking to anyone at FedEx. But they saw a broader shift occurring. It began with, and they began using rich communication services, what we call RCS. It's a communication that replaces plain SMS with branded, verified, and native two-way interactions. The popular press says this is the biggest messaging transformation in a decade. Mobile carriers claim RCS device coverage has reached 96%. This is a shift from plain texts from some random number, maybe saying there's an outage in your area, to branded images, verified messages, buttons, and interactive maps. This is all inside the messaging app already on your customer's phone. There's no app to download, and it's a personal and secure delivery channel from you to your customer. But for most businesses, the business case isn't sold exclusively on a better customer experience. Most require some operational or cost benefit. The Lowe's RCS story is a great example of that. During the pandemic, their customers shifted to digital online orders. Their volumes doubled and have remained there ever since. During that time, Lowe's started sending delivery notifications through SMS, and they saw a 20% reduction in the redelivery rates. And for many of us, we'd be thrilled to stop there. 20% reduction is great. However, their store pickup process was broken. They had 20% cancellation rate for their store pickup process. That meant that 1 in every 5 customers who placed orders never came in to pick them up. So how did they fix that? They were first drawn to RCS because of the ability to brand and verify messages. They knew customers could actually trust the message was coming from Lowe's and it wasn't a scam. And they used the walk, run, fly approach, starting with branded messages first before building out interactive pickup and delivery workflows. This has dramatically improved shipment and delivery success for them. And you too could have similar results with more efficient truck rolls, and reduced call volumes, and happier customers. But RCS isn't the only success story to consider in modern communications. In fact, this other strategy already lives inside your customer's phone, and it has dramatically improved in the past 12 to 18 months. Most of you, when you think about digital wallet, think about payments. But the wallet has transformed into a native phone experience, a branded communication channel. It evolved from static cards, like the credit card that you have maybe in your mobile wallet, into a live interactive hub. Companies like airlines push real-time gate changes, delay notifications, and luggage tracking directly through a wallet pass. Many of you probably have experienced those as you've done travel or maybe joined certain things like the Starbucks program. That same technology can deliver utility notifications, things like billing alerts, payment confirmations, outage status cards, all branded, all proactive, all without your customer needing to call you. It's already there. It's in their wallet. And the information is there before they even have checked it. If you're still not convinced your customers are interested in these types of things, even in many forms of communication, Ben has some studies to show you that your customers definitely want to hear from you. So I'm going to pass it off to Ben so he can talk to you a little bit about the studies that Chartwell has done.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. So I have a whole bunch of graph slides, but I'm going to try and make them as interesting as possible. And I'm going to be showing you data from three primary sources. One are benchmark surveys that we send out to utilities to ask them what they're doing in various areas. This number here on this slide comes from our residential consumer survey that we launch every year to a cross-section of people across North America. And then finally from our Transact research study, which is a post-outage customer experience survey. And so my first section here is going to be all about outage communications, but I'm going to try and expand that when we get towards the end to sort of how this would apply to whatever area of the business that you work in and however you serve customers. So one of I guess the primary reason that everybody thinks about to do outage communications is because it is something that customers want. In our residential consumer survey, 84% of customers said that it was important or very important for them to get this information from their utility. What is the status of my power outage? Please tell me. I want to know. And we can go to the next slide now, please. And from the business perspective, the benefits to the customer are, not only is it that they want it, but that the customers are happier after they get this information. There's another benefit to them. Customers who receive an estimated time of restoration have reported satisfaction scores 19% higher than those customers who didn't get an estimated time of restoration. Over on the right, 15% improvement in customer satisfaction for those customers who received a cause of their outage. There are all sorts of fantastic details to the data that goes into what these numbers are. Not every utility is going to see exactly the same thing. Not every outage is going to have this same bump. For example, customers who have longer outages get a higher increase in satisfaction when they get a cause than those, if it's a 20-minute outage and I get a cause, a slight boost in satisfaction, but as those outages drift longer and longer and longer, the benefits to getting this information to them is even higher. And so every situation is going to be a little bit different, but there's benefits regardless. In addition to satisfying customers and addressing their needs, there are other reasons that utilities would want to build out outage communications capabilities. This is our benchmark survey data asking utilities from the last 4 years, 6 years now. We'll be doing this survey again this year. The 2026 data is not out, but starting in 2020, look over at that group of bars to the left. This is the percentage of utilities that say that reducing impacts on the contact center and their crews are a key reason why they do outage communications. And this has been growing year over year. Public utilities and IOU and cooperatives are lower in this category than IOUs, who are more willing to say that the call center impacts are important to them and a major driver of why they make decisions. I want to encourage you all that this is something that is worthwhile. I know that preserving and enhancing the utilities brand, serving customers, the more personal human-to-human understanding of what it's like to be in a power outage is a big motivator, and public utilities and cooperatives score higher in those categories. That's more likely. That's where their focus is on serving the customers and their personal needs. But reducing the impact on the contact center allows you to do other things. And so I would encourage you to think about that. There are sort of two ways to increase the impact of your outage communications. One is to get more people involved, either through marketing, promoting customers to, hey, sign up for our alerts, or just to start sending alerts to customers without them automatically enrolling customers. When we ask customers, do you want this message from your utility? Sort of those two groups of bars on the right, notifications if power goes out at my home, active outages, please tell me about active outages, or all the way to the right, planned outages, predicted outages in my area. 3/4 of customers want that information. Another 20% are fine if you send it to them. It's only a very small fraction of customers who don't want this information. This is something that is actively growing right now. If your utility is not doing it, I would encourage you to consider automatic enrollment. Customers want it. The other way, well, I'll get to that in a second. The channels that you use to provide outage push alerts, there are some variables into what you would choose, why you would choose it, what the impacts of that are. Expanding the channels that you offer for customers. You can see the growth from 2022 to 2024 in all of these various channels. Utilities are providing new alternatives, new options for customers. Paul talked about some new, expanding the technologies that are available to customers to improve that experience for them. That's the other way to do it. If you don't want to automatically enroll customers, you can make the options that you have more attractive or add new options for customers to expand the impact of outage communications for them. The thing that you need to keep in mind, and this is where it's going to start kind of rounding up for me, not all channels are created the same. So first we see here, this is from our Transact data. So customers who had an outage, they went on and they tried to get information through all of these various channels. And then we asked them if they use that channel, how easy was that channel? This is within 2 weeks of their outage. So this is fresh information, things that were fresh on their mind. Email and text message are the easiest. You have those more traditional digital channels and call channels in the middle. You see IVRs 6.1 or the call center rep 5.5. Kind of there in the middle, and then the social media and chat kind of make the most difficult to get the information that you want. So when you think about getting customers information, you would ideally want to make it as easy as possible. And you can either choose to promote the channels that customers already find easy, email and text, or you can try and make improvements to those channels more in the middle. How can we improve the IVR? How can we improve our outage map? That kind of thing. I will leave it up to you to decide where you want to invest your time and effort. And we'll go to the next one, Paul. And it's not just the ease of use. There are some more, I think this is more impactful, honestly. This is a personal opinion. So the estimated time of restoration, we asked as part of our Transact survey, did you get an ETR? If you did get an ETR, was it accurate? And for those customers who used a call center representative to get their information, 14% of those customers were restored late compared to the ETR that they received. Now, on the other end, outage map. If the customer used the outage map to get the ETR, only 8% of those customers that they were restored late. And the problem, I don't have data to show this, but my theory about what's happening is that these ETRs are being updated, but because the schedule of receiving those updates is either set by the customer for the call channels. If they choose to call back, maybe they can get a new ETR, or for those email, text, and mobile app push alerts, maybe those are scheduled and the utility is concerned, we don't want to send too many updates. We don't want to bother the customers. So there's business rules that keep customers from getting the most recent up-to-date ETRs. But if you have an outage map, if you have something that the customer can pull up whenever they want, the latest information is right there. That's when they're going to get the best answers, the best information. And the reason that this is important is over on the next slide, is that an incorrect ETR just kills customer satisfaction. You're worse off with a wrong ETR than you are if you just had not given them an ETR at all. So this is what I want to leave you on. If you get, we asked on our survey satisfaction scores 1 to 10. Those people who gave us a 1 or a 2, those most unsatisfied customers, the bottom 2 boxes, if you're restoring your power early or on time compared to that estimated time of restoration, if your ETR is accurate, about 1 in 20 people is going to be in that most unsatisfied group. If your ETR is wrong, if the restoration is late, if the customer didn't get the latest information, 1/3 of those customers are going to have a really, really bad time. They're going to be in that most unsatisfied group. And so that's why it's important to get customers the correct information in a way that's easy for them so that they don't feel, the word betrayed, I don't think is too strong here. If you tell them something and you don't follow through because of a breakdown in communication, you're going to end up really, really upsetting your customer. So with that, I think that concludes my first bit, and then I'll be back to try and I forgot about this. Thank you so much. This was my whole thing that I fought to put this in. The reason that we know all this and then I can say all this and make all these claims is because we gather data through our Transact research study, which is a post-outage event or post-event survey that we send out to customers within 2 weeks of their outage. This is a big and growing thing that on the next slide, I remember now, the public utilities are behind a little bit on. But I would encourage you to look around and say, we have the technology now to identify which customers were out under which circumstances, and we have the ability to ask for their feedback. So rather than waiting, for JD Power next year or our annual customer survey and saying, hey, did you experience an outage? You have the ability to identify those customers who did experience an outage and ask them very specifically what their experiences were like, or any number of other transactions. And so I would encourage you to look into that. This is the way that the industry is going now, enabled by the technology that Paul and Susan and any number of other folks are offering now. So please do take the opportunity to look into that, Paul, slide. And yeah, this is to show that public utilities are just behind on this trend. So if this is not something that you have run across yet, I would encourage you to go out of your way a little bit and to look into the potential of post-outage surveys or post-whatever surveys to get information and ask customers how they're feeling. That really helps you identify what their needs are.
All right, we'll move on to Susan.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, so that's been a lot of information. Now let's take a look. Let's do a little bit of self-reflection. Think about where you may be in your progression towards modernizing the communications of your utility. Based on what Paul and Bet have said, we can set goals that push us to continue to enhance the engagement with the end customers. I'm going to use the term customers to represent the end recipients. I realize some of you may have members or residents. Please allow me to use customers as a generic term. In order to know where we stand, we need a bit of a criteria to judge against so that we can know if we are improving and we can prioritize what we need to do next. So would you rate yourself as walking, running, or flying when it comes to your communication to your customers? Walk. Delivering messages timely on flexible channels is the key to getting started. I think both of the gentlemen mentioned this as well. You need to identify which channels you can use to connect to customers. And auto-enrolling customers, as Ben mentioned, can be a huge way to get things started. You can do this safely if you also have a way to track your TCPA revocations of consent that you receive in return. And we'll hit TCPA a little bit deeper, although it is a whole webinar topic of its own, so we will just touch on it lightly. Run. Send useful information and make sure it is memorable and relevant. This also gets into what Ben was talking about, where the information needs to be accurate and up to date. Your ETR needs to be communicated and stay up to date. And then fly. Communicate by establishing a conversation in which the customer can engage. Allow your customers easy paths to take action. We can actually have these conversations with the customer and engage them in what's going on.
Susan, I know we're trying to keep this positive, but there is another category called crawl.
Yeah, there is. I'm assuming, and I've lived in the corner, no more crawling.
That's right.
The days of crawling are over.
That's just not going to get it in these days.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Very true. All right, let's dive deeper. The basics of walking. Hopefully, some of you are past this point already, but let's review the basics so that we have a solid baseline. If we miss a basic step, our next level will not be sustainable. So we need to find a way to reach the customer. You need to have quality digital contacts, phone numbers, email addresses, so you can reach your customers on as many channels as possible. Make sure your data is clean. Is that really an SMS capable phone number? Has the phone number been disconnected and you need to update your records? Data dipping is a process in which we use other data sources to confirm the contact details. Think of it as scrubbing your customer data to keep it usable. Once you have good data, you can expand your contact methods. This can be done by auto-enrolling to get things started. People don't always go looking for new ways to communicate with their utility, so you may have to get it out there. Now that you are reaching out to them on multiple channels, reach out to the customer on their preferred channel. So B, identify the best way to reach the customer. Ideally, you can give customers an option as to how they want to receive their information. This defines their preference. For example, my 85-year-old mom communicates very differently than my 22-year-old daughter, and they even want different information. Preferences should allow people to decide which channel, and it should also allow people to decide which categories of information they're interested in. The key here is to send them information on time as they need it. You may need to send an ad hoc message when there is an emergent issue, but keep it focused. If they want and need the information, they will stay interested. And in the automated messages, which make things nice and predictable, so you can start building trust with your customer. This is where having a fallback channel can be important. Make sure you are sending the expected situational details, even if you fall back to older channels or you fill in with an ad hoc message if automations are not providing the needed communications. I'm going to actually hit that even more in depth in the run level. And then C, stay with the regulations. Stay within the regulations. If customers are receiving quality information in the way they prefer, they will be less likely to block any of the channels. There are specific TCPA guidelines focusing on telephone numbers for SMS and voice calls. And so to adhere to these guidelines, you need to specifically track any efforts the customer makes to have the communications on that number end, aka stop. That is different than letting customers change just their preference. TCPA has some strict rules, so having a tool that can track and evaluate those elements electronically will be key to finding ways to expand your communications without risking any unforeseen breaches to the regulations. If they trust you will respect their preferences on communication, they will lean into your communications. They will sign up for more communications. They just need to know that they can trust you to send them the information that they need. Running. Running is a very strong level of accomplishment. If you're running, you are delivering a large set of quality communications. To run, you need to provide details. If you are running, you are striving to deliver more and more information to keep your customers informed. That information has to be relevant, and it must catch their attention in the way you need it to. So in other words, it has to be memorable. Key elements of this are providing distinct individual insights that are focused for that specific customer and providing that at the right moment. So I have an example of a customer on the East Coast that I worked with, and they had deployed their AMI meters. They worked with us to develop a direct connection between when their AMI meter indicated an outage and their ability to make sure that messaging was going to that customer on their preferred channel at that moment. And we had a conclusion of being able to tell customers within 30 seconds of when their power was out that the operating company already knew the power was out and they were working on an ETR and would send them additional information right away. So that bridge and that speed and timeliness, that had a huge impact in their customer satisfaction and their customers' ability to act accordingly. The more detailed and accurate that information, the more relevant and memorable it will be. This can be done across all types of categories. So we're talking a lot about outage, but it includes usage and billing and customer appointments and so many other opportunities. There's a lot of different categories of information that you can continue to extend. You need to stay in control and use flexibility to be resilient. So you have to control your outreach. To maintain that accuracy and thus the trust that you have built to get to the running level, you have to have control of each messaging campaign and its guidelines. Things like quiet hours and messaging limits for certain campaigns, and being able to suspend a planned or automated campaign should a situation change. Swapping in an ad hoc message to make sure a messaging details are fully aligned to the current situation can be a strong option if a campaign is suspended for any reason. Ad hoc capabilities also allow you to move quickly if an emergency arises so you can communicate tactically. And these are some of the things that I also mentioned at the walk level. So we need to be able to have the flexibility to adjust. I had a customer that had an issue in their billing system. Bills were posted in their online My Accounts, but they were unable to trigger the needed paperless bills. So they used our system through an ad hoc interface to be able to send updates to those customers indicating they can go online to get their bill. That allowed them to maintain their commitment to that customer to give them a paperless billing without forcing them to miss a bill or become delinquent.
I think that's a great point you're making too, Susan, because a lot of times utilities, they try to do all this automated communications. And when those communications fail, you need to have very effective ad hoc communication capabilities to back those up. We've seen it back in Winter Storm Fern. There was a lot of examples of where automated communications failed and utilities had to shift over to ad hoc communications to maintain communications with their customers.
Very true. The last thing I'm listing here is listen, and this relates back to what Ben said. The best practice is always to give your customers a chance to be heard. Put some surveys out there. Ben gave you a ton of interesting survey data. You can make sure you are listening to their experiences with your communications. Surveys can be a powerful tool to collecting insights and setting those goals that you have to make sure that you're having direct impacts to the customers. So flying. Engaging with customers is not just communicating to them, right? We've talked a lot about sending messages, but it's allowing them to engage with you for joint resolution of their concern or issue. So have a conversation with them. Treat each message as a way to enable your customer to take action. Paul talked about RCS and wallet cards. They have more ability to have buttons and have updated, on-time delivery of data. And you could really open up capabilities and trust with those interactions with your customers. Full conversations can be held on these and on your existing digital channels, email, SMS, voice, using preferred conversation flows and even using using conversational flows and even using focused AI agents like chatbots. These can provide information and guidance to your customers. If you want to engage with your customers, focus on empowering them. Direct appointment scheduling on a digital channel. If you need to get access to the meter and you send them an SMS, make that SMS able to direct them so they can set their appointment right then. Collections payment plans. If you're trying to do, you're trying to gather revenue and you're prompting people to help them with their payment opportunities, put plan information in there. Let them select a plan right away. These two-way communications can be game-changing for the utility and for the customer. But B, you have to be safe. The more data that we put on these digital channels, the more secure we need them to be. Even in SMS these days, we're seeing some scam messages. Click here to pay your bill, but it didn't actually come from the utility. To continue these levels of engagement with the customers, we need to make sure that we have their trust and they know their information is secure. This is where some of these additional channels also really start to come into play with some of the new technologies. Digital wallet cards are pre-authenticated and readily available in their wallets so they can take action. RCS comes from a verified channel. It makes sure that they know who is sending them those messages and they'll be more willing to interact with them. And the last element I really wanted to highlight was to be personal. And I don't just mean, hello, Susan. I mean, there's simple adjustments we can make to outage messaging, for example, for small commercial customers should be different than a residential customer. And delivering it in the needed language. Those are some of the basics, but we can do even more than that. We can strive to give customers a truly personal experience that ties all the aspects of their current situation together. A late payment message for a person who usually pays on time may be different than a late payment message for a person who has had chronic issues managing payments and needs assistant options. So we can understand all the elements of the user's journey that they're experiencing, outages, payments, billing, appointments, and we can tailor those communications to make sure that we're keeping things succinct and appropriate for what they need to hear from us at the time they need to hear it. Technology is making things easier to communicate, and I'm excited to see what we can do with it going forward. With that, I'm going to pass. Oh, nope, I got a couple slides. Sorry. I wanted to mention that improving your communications can have a huge impact. So whether you're just establishing ad hoc communications, you've got some automated messaging going, these are some key statistics that have come up so that we can show that even walking to running has a huge impact in your customer experience. So how are we going to do this? We have used our expertise here at Convey around achieving these goals to build some useful tools that can help, and we can help at all the levels. Start with the essentials: scrubbing your data, enforcing TCPA, reaching customers, and then having conversations with them. We have a package that can really get you moving, walking, running, or flying, wherever you're at, and we would be happy to share our experiences with you, so do feel free to contact us after the webinar. I did want to share one last example with you. We worked with Hawaiian Electric. They needed to scale up their digital communications, and they needed to do it fairly quickly. To solve that, they partnered with us here at Convey, and we were able to improve their communication capabilities rapidly. It was done in time to help them during Tropical Storm Hone. They had an emergency communication plan ready and a system that could do it at full scale. I will leave you on that note and pass it back to Ben, and he has some additional messaging findings, I believe.
Yeah, thank you. I know I spent a good chunk of my time earlier talking about outage communications specifically, but Susan and Paul both had mentioned several other customer journeys, specifically a few times billing and payment and high bill messaging and setting up payment options, payment extensions, arrangements, those types of things. And so I wanted to go into that real quickly as just another example of another place to look in your business, a place to look where you have opportunities to serve customers in new ways. I'm sure many of you have a whole list of things that you would love to do, but I want to encourage you to go look around because there are opportunities. So the very first slide that I showed you was 84% of customers want to know about outage information, outage updates. This is other options from that same question showing that 84% of customers would definitely want to know if their rates are changing, which I would assume that would be 100%, but I guess there's people that are more trusting or comfortable than I am. But then that next option down, your bill is unusually high. Susan talked about this. Getting customers usage updates and high bill alerts is something coming that you're going to get an unhappy surprise when your bill comes and it's high and maybe you're not able to pay it or it causes great strain to pay. So 3/4 of customers want this particular piece of information as an example. And we can go to the next slide and see that while companies do send out bill due alerts, 90% of utility companies send out your bill is due. Only 57% of companies are sending out these high bill alerts. Your usage is unusually high, or you're on a price plan, whatever reason, your bill is unusually high. So 3/4 of customers want it, but just over half of utilities have it. So there's a big opportunity here to get these types of messages out to customers. We can go to the next slide. And so if you want to do high bill alerts, this is just an indication. 2/3 of utilities have customers pick the threshold, and 1/3 of utilities decide on the threshold for their own customers. So just because you decide to do this new type of alert, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can just turn it on. There's all sorts of business rules, other things behind the scenes that have to go into setting up these messages. So it's not maybe as easy as we want to say, oh yeah, just do it. It's fine. It's wonderful. There are things that you have to do behind the scenes, but I would say, and I think Susan and Paul would say, that it's worth it to keep customers as informed as possible. And from a channel perspective for these high bill alerts on the next slide there, it's the same channels that you would use for other general messaging types. You know, you can just send out emails. You don't have to set up anything new or fancy. You just send an SMS or maybe an RCS message if you want to have that extra layer of trust. Or a phone call, say, hey, there's a high bill coming. If you want to make some changes, now would be the time. And then sort of finally, my final stance here is that the payment arrangement concept that Susan mentioned, these sort of back and forth, these two-way communications. This is from our residential consumer survey data from 22 through 25, and we'll see if this trend continues in our 2026 data when we launch the survey later this summer. But an increasing number of customers, you can see there on that left-hand block, have received financial assistance, payment terms, payment extensions for their power bills. This is going up and up and up. And so there's an increasing need from customers to reach out to you, contact you, maybe for the first time, maybe they've never done this before. But there are needs for efficient, effective, respectful two-way communications with customers in all sorts of journeys across the utility. Some are long and established, like outage communications, and some are up and coming and increasingly important. High bill alerts, customers want them, and then financial assistance, payment arrangements, these types of things, up and up and up every year. So please look at ways that you can better serve your customers through messaging. There are technologies, capabilities, and business rationales to support all of it. So with that, I'll see you again in the question and answer section later.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. Yeah, just one last thing to think about on these payment arrangements. We see this more and more every single day, that utilities that proactively reach their customers before they get, say 45 days past due on a bill, have a much better chance of paying their bill than if they have to accumulate those past due charges over a number of months. So, communication is the key. Communication at scale with digital communications and digital solutions really does make a difference with these types of customers. Okay, so with that, we're happy to take some questions from the audience. We know that there's been a lot of questions that have been coming through on the Q&A side of things, and I know Harrison has been busy writing all those down for us so that we can go ahead and prepare some answers for the questions that are out there from the audience.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. To start us off, one of the first questions was asking about TCPA guidelines to follow auto-enrolling customers without their consent. How do these programs get around those guidelines?
So as a business, when somebody signs up for service from you as a business, if you are sending information about that business and not a marketing request, you're not asking the customer to buy something else, right? You have an ongoing relationship. You can auto-enroll them and start communications. You just have to give them the option to discontinue those communications. So as an informational message, you can get started and at least give them information about how the utility can communicate with them and get started with some, like outage. A lot of people will be fine if you go ahead and auto-enroll them for outage. That's absolutely an informational message, and it gets those communication channels started. There are other elements of TCPA. I understand TCPA is a complicated question, and maybe Paul and I can come back and do a webinar just on that in the next little bit. That'd be great.
I think that would be a great idea. Thanks, Susan. What else you got, Harrison?
Yeah, another question is asking about the ease of accessing question on slide 16. The attendee is asking what the range you were giving in that survey, and to note the difference between 4 and 6.
I think that's a Ben question.
So in terms of the range scale of 1 to 10, how easy was it to get information? So there is some nuance that goes into this, and a little bit of noise that we could get into. The short answer is it's a scale on 1 to 10. If the customer used that channel, we do not ask how easy was it to use the website. we say, if you use the website, and how easy was it to get the information you need? So there's that. The customers who used the website said that their ease of accessing information was this. Now, customers might use more than one channel. So they might have used the mobile app and the website. So in that case, that customer is counted twice. It's both, it's in both buckets. We're not able to differentiate that data. But this is from 2024. Yeah. So this was, I think, 17,000 customers ish, something like that. So it's my hope that those little differences will sort of wash out. That answers the question, scale of 1 to 10.
Thanks, Ben.
You could actually, create your own surveys to build your own slide just like this by following up with your customers using, digital techniques as well.
Another question we have is how does the high bill data tie into your communications tool?
So you can use high bill data in a lot of ways. You can send alerts at various thresholds. It's all about making sure that the information is tactical to what the customer needs to know. So you can send different parts of the information depending on the channel. A wallet card, for example, I think Paul showed a slide that it can show kind of your current usage and then kind of change color as you get into a high usage rate. And I know Ben also mentioned that people want high usage information. Thank you. People want high usage information because it also allows them to change their action. So it's part of that encouraging people to take action based on the data that you give them and the information you give them. So keeping them aware really can help them to make decisions and not have shock at various billing elements.
Yeah, I would add, some of the mid-cycle type of communications that are really critical. We do have solutions that provide that type of mid-cycle analysis. So you can get to the customer even before the next bill is dropped. So you can kind of help that customer proactively manage their usage. So, very common thing is a BillWise AI tool that we have called from Powerly, which is a product of ours. So that's a great way to kind of avoid the problem before the problem, so to speak.
Yeah, it's another good one.
We got a lot of questions here too. When sending out different communications across different topics to different groups of people, how do you separate that data out? For example, do you manually create separate files to upload, or do you isolate the groups you're sending to beforehand?
So that relates to how you're integrating with your messaging system. So messaging systems have the ability to take different roles. If you have an existing program on your side that's already kind of identifying the personas and identifying the accounts that need to be notified, then you can supply that information up front. Otherwise, the messaging system can help you. The messaging system can have information about a customer's record. It can share that information, have a view of it, if you will, and then it can help to make those determinations of those persona values. So you can send more what you will consider more raw data, right? Raw usage data, raw billing data, current outage data, and then you can let the information system that's sending the messages go ahead and help you with business rules to determine what is the next best step for each customer and what is the message that each customer needs. So let me do that by example. We have a couple of customers that we do where we do some of their more advanced outage logic. They can just send us an OMS report that says these transformers are out of power. That's all they have to send us. And then the system, using agreed to business logic rules, can decide based on the transformers that are out, which accounts are impacted, based on the accounts, which customers, and what's the best way to talk to those customers. And then we can send to them pre-approved templates filled in with all of the specific data for each of the customers. So it's really about establishing that layer of integration. And the messaging systems can take as prominent a role as you want them to. There's a lot of tools available. It may be best if we get into kind of some private conversations and talk about the specific situation. And if anybody wants to reach out, I'm very happy to do that. Talk about some specific options in your specific cases.
We have a question in the chat. Are you able to provide any additional information around the sample sizes in some of the case studies provided between specifically co-ops, public power, and IOUs? And do you have confidence level based on these sample sizes?
I think that was partly for me with our surveys. So the benchmark surveys that we send out are, I would say, 50 to 60% IOUs in participation, and then the remainder public or cooperatives. Confidence levels, no, that is not a level that we get to. A lot of what we do is to look over time to see what is there, what is not there. The biggest source of noise in our data is consistent participants year over year. So we may have one utility participate. Every utility is different, and so the ones that participate sort of drive the number. But that's why we do so much work with Paul and Susan and other solution providers, and have our leadership councils and do the best practice awards so that we have multiple views on things. So if we see something in the data that we can't back up with our connections or experience in the industry overall, we toss that away. So our uncertainty, our confidence intervals are based on our relationships with utilities and service providers, more so than students' t-tests and things like that.
Back in my days at the utility, we had kind of a three-pronged strategy. One was obviously taking a look at third-party sources like Chartwell or JD Power to see how we were stacking and ranking compared to others. The other thing we did was we had a comprehensive NPS survey process that we did twice a year with all the customers, where we were doing net promoter score type of measurements to make sure we understood what were our customers saying directly to us about how we were doing. And the final piece we did was customer sat type of surveys. These are interaction surveys that would happen with sometimes closed loop feedback, so that we could actually provide that back to whoever offered the service there for that particular call type. So those three types of things really help you stay on top of how your peers are doing, how you're doing with your customers, and how your customers feel about you as a utility. So I would encourage you guys to do that. And the messaging systems pretty much support all that.
We have a technical question, so I'm not really sure how to phrase it. One of the attendees is asking if there's a pricing structure for the wallet for customers.
It's not priced on it's priced based on the size of the utility, if that answers the question. So that would establish a rough number of the, estimated wallets that would be utilized. It's not priced on a per message. It's priced on like what we call like a per meter or a per entity within the utility.
Okay. Which tools are utilities using most with this product? Or like which functions, I guess?
Oh, functions.
Yeah, I would say all of them.
Yeah.
There's definitely a range, which I think is why we came up with that, why I think I like that walk, run, fly analogy. So I have companies that we're working with that are really just walking. They're really just trying to dig into communications and get reliable communications out there on whatever channel they can get a hold of, especially in emergency cases. We've had companies that just need help with fire notices or public safety power shutoff situations under fire or other emergencies, or a large snowstorm, as some people have incurred recently. And then we have other customers who are really on the brink of flying and are starting to fly, right? They're at the level where they're using all of those elements and have built them up and kind of gained their capabilities so that they're really doing more advanced elements. So I would say all of the features are used, and it really just depends on where you are in the continuum, because I think we're all striving, right, to get to use more and more of those elements. TCPA is a very critical piece. Preferences, whether you do it within the messaging system or within your CIS system, is still very critical pieces. People need to be communicated to in ways they can absorb it. My mom cannot absorb the same information my daughter can in the same format. The channel has to be specific. So those are some of the base keys. And then once you have those building blocks, then you can just continue to run through and do more and more of the items. So hopefully that helps.
One thing I'll add to what Susan's saying is, the beauty of the industry that we serve is that everybody does share information. So one of the things we're really good at is sharing best practices around how other utilities are using the communication channels, the communication techniques. And that ranges from anything from emergency communications, where we really kind of cut our teeth in the very beginning, all the way to program and product enrollment and product support for various demand response programs, things of that nature, public power safety shutoff, all those different things. We're more than willing to share that information, and our customers usually will share it with you as well.
I believe we have time for one more question. And then to the question in the chat, yes, this deck will be shared. Last question is, do you have any existing partnerships with customer service solution providers such as My Account?
There are several partnerships that we've been looking into, and I think there's a few key ones out there. I don't think we have My Account specifically. Paul, maybe you have some insights too, because I know we're working with some scheduling partners and we have some information with some payment people that we're trying to help facilitate payments. You may have more insight.
Yeah, we have a really robust partnership program at Convey. A guy that leads it up was one of the founders of the company that Susan came out of, Jay Malin. And, we have a lot of different partnerships. We have 25 years of integration experience across all kinds of complex environments that are out there. So if we don't have a partnership with a vendor that you would like us to have a partnership with, we're always open to talking to them and always looking at how we can increase those partnerships. We have partnerships with, payment providers, CIS systems, contact management systems, all different types of systems that are out there. We have tons of different types of partnerships. CRM is what I was thinking.
Yep. And a last note, Harrison, if I can real fast. If you're going to be at either Tech Advantage or IUCX, stop by the Convey booth. They can continue to answer your questions more and more.
I think we'll be at APPA too, if I'm not mistaken. Harrison,
nice.
You better sign us up if we haven't done it yet.
That's correct.
Nice.
Convey will be at our national conference as well as our customer connections. I'd like to extend a big thank you to our colleagues from Convey for sharing their experiences with us today and for their dedicated support to Public Power and APPA. As I mentioned before, you'll receive a follow-up email containing a link to the slides and recording in the next few days. We'll also include a brief survey and would appreciate any feedback you have on today's session. And don't forget to check out our podcast channel, where you'll be able to access an audio version of today's presentation. Just search Public Power X, one word, on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.